What is her name? Favra.
1, 2, 3, let's switch this up.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my second, yes that's right, I said second, consecutive monthly wrap up. So today we're going to be talking all about the books that I read for the month of August. So the order that I'm going to talk about them in is not necessarily the order that I read them in, but kicking it off, we are going to be starting with One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is the first book. I think it's going to turn into a trilogy because I think from what I read, the third book comes out in 2023. So this story follows these 4 main students. There are 5 students that walk into detention, and while they're in detention, one of them dies. So the story follows the other 4 as they go through life and how their life is drastically changed as a result of them being a part of this, whole incident. The student that dies is kind of like Dan from Gossip Girl. So he basically runs like this gossip site where but it's not anonymous, they know that it's him, where he basically exposes people's secrets. And the 4 people that were in the room with him when he died were all people that he was going to expose. So now they are focused on trying to either keep their secrets hidden, or as they get exposed, trying to basically run interference and minimize the damage that's done by their secrets getting out. And then also you're trying to figure out the mystery behind how he died, who killed him, that whole thing. It starts off with a bang. Like, it kicks off like, ooh, this is about to be good. You don't really start trying to Scooby-Doo the whole thing until maybe like the last quarter of the book. It wasn't that it was a bad book, right? It was a good book. I think I gave it a 3.7. Just kidding, I checked my notes and I actually gave it a 3.5.
Haha, I lied.
I went into this book expecting that it was going to be like a murder mystery. And like, it was, but it wasn't. If you like YA teen high school drama stuff, then like, this is a great book. It was very interesting, but not what I was looking for. Like, I wanted it to be very focused on the mystery aspect of it and less focused on like their personal lives. It wasn't a bad book, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And that was the problem that I had with it. So I guess that's kind of more my fault than it is the book's fault. I didn't really get as much mystery solving, super sleuthing, Scooby-Dooing as I really wanted. So right after that, I read the next book in the series, which is One of Us is Next. And this book I actually did give a 3.8 or 3.7 to. This book was much better. First of all, this book was better paced. The first book was a little, again, slow pacing in terms of the mystery. We spent more time dealing with the drama than we did trying to solve the mystery. In this book, there's a lot more happening. I also liked the characters a lot more in this story. I loved, what was his name? Knox. I love Knox in the story. He's my favorite character, which is funny because literally in the first chapter, I have a note that says something like, I don't like him already. But then like later on, I'm like, oh, this guy is now my favorite character. So love Knox. Like, all the main characters I liked, but Knox was definitely my favorite. I will say that I really enjoyed the ending for One of Us is Lying. But the rest of the book, I could have just really done without. This book, I enjoyed all the way through. I really liked the romance. I didn't really care for the romance between, who was it, Bronwyn and Nate. It was like, okay, it was like, it's fine. But the romance between Maeve and Luis, or Lewis, I don't know how you say his name. I always said Luis in my mind. But I really liked their little thing. And then I really, well, I'm not going to spoil who gets together at the end. But the couple that kind of gets together, maybe sort of kind of gets together at the end, I was here for that a long time ago. I was waiting for that to unfold. So this book was much more satisfying, better paced, better mystery, more focused on the mystery and less focused on like personal drama. And the personal drama that they did kind of touch on was relevant to the mystery at hand. So this book was done so much better. I can't wait to see what the third book is gonna bring to us. A lot of people were saying that Jake was coming back, which is interesting because if you watch the series, I don't know how they're gonna do that. So the next book on this list, as a human person, one of the things that I hate is starting something and not finishing it. That is like one of my personal pet peeves for myself. I will purposefully not start something if I don't think it's something that I'm going to be able to keep up with. The only thing worse than starting a book and not finishing it is starting a book, finishing it, and then wishing that you hadn't. And that is exactly how I feel about this next book, which is We Were Liars. Now, I knew that this book was very like controversial, hit or miss. You either love it or you hate it. And I even said that I was gonna read it because I wanted to form my own opinion. I'm gonna read it because I want to know what the hype is about. This book literally felt like somebody watched like The Uninvited and was like, I'm gonna write a book like this and then ruin it. This book is 250 pages. I figured out the entire plot to this story by page like 71. So this story basically is about a girl who goes on vacation with her family every year. They have like this private island. They're so rich that they have their own island that they vacation at every summer. So one summer, her and her cousins are together. Something happens. You don't really know what happens. And she ends up with basically like a traumatic brain injury and she doesn't remember anything. She loses her memory. And then she spends 2 years recovering, and now she's returning to the island for the first time, and she's trying to remember, you know, what happened, and nobody will tell her. Now, if you are somebody that has never read a thriller suspense type of book before, then maybe you won't see this coming. But if you've ever watched any mystery, psychological thriller, or anything like that, it's so obvious. It was so obvious. As soon as she arrived on the island, it was so obvious. It was so obvious. If you read this book, then you know what I'm talking about. I was just so disappointed. The best part about this book, she would like tell these stories about kings and princesses and stuff like that, but she was really kind of like alluding to her grandfather and her mom and her aunts. I thought that those little like mini stories were nice and like well done. But that was just kind of like, those were kind of just like interludes. That wasn't like the focus of the book. I'm going to read you a quote from the note the author wrote in this book. When people disliked the book, they disliked it quite strongly. Some readers actually did throw it across their rooms. I know because they told me so on Twitter. So you know that this book isn't good. So I almost don't feel bad saying that it wasn't good. I gave this book 2 stars. So now that we've gotten that out the way, the next book that I read, I would probably have to give this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book and I didn't really know what to expect. It's the first nonfiction book that I've read. So I didn't really know how I was going to feel about it, if I was going to be able to get into the writing style. It is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And I'm going to be completely honest, iCarly was not a good show. Was it a trailblazer? Was it ahead of its time? Sure. But was it funny and entertaining? Absolutely not. Very unpopular opinion. I'm fully aware. I always felt like that show just lacked pizzazz. I always felt like all the other Dan Snyder shows were better. She goes through and she starts, I think, from the time that she's like 6 or something like that, up to, I think, the time that she's like 30 or something like that. And she just talks about what her relationship with her mother was like and how much her relationship with her mother influenced everything else in her life. The way that it's written, it makes her mother and her grandmother out to be monsters. Like, they are just the worst type of human. Towards the end, like, she talks about the fact that her mother was, I forget what she said, like she was playful or she was whatever. So it's like there have to be some good stories somewhere in her 30 some years of living, but they're not in this book. That's what I can tell you. She also is very open and vulnerable and honest about her eating disorder, her alcohol abuse issues, some of her relationships that didn't work out. She also talks about like her healing process and the steps that she took to try to not only heal from the grief of her mother dying, but heal from all of the trauma that her mother left her with when she died. All the things that she did to her while she was alive. I think that some people were under the impression that she was gonna like drag iCarly or like drag Miranda Cosgrove or drag Ariana Grande, and she doesn't spill any like major tea. She does talk about the creator, she does talk about Miranda, she does talk about Ariana, but most of the things that she's talking about aren't necessarily about them. She's talking about herself during a time where they were kind of just around, like they were in her life during whatever she's going through. This book really touches on the complicated nature of relationships with people that you're close to in your life. You can both hate and despise someone for who they were, but also miss them and love them at the same time. And this book just does such a good job of conveying that. She says, I miss her childlike spirit. Mom had an energy that could at times be so endearing, even captivating. I miss when she was happy. When she was happy, it was infectious. I never got to see any of that in this book. I would give this book a solid like 4.9, like so close to 5 stars. I just wish we could have got a little bit more of the side of her mom that she claims was playful and energetic and happy, because I didn't see any of that in here. At least not on a genuine level. Anytime her mother was doing something nice, it was either her doing something nice because it somehow benefited her to do something nice, or it was her doing something nice and then like she'd hold it over your head later and like blame you for it or guilt you into something. You don't really get any genuine moments with her mom being like a good person. There's 2 more books that I read in the month of August, and the next one that I'm going to talk about is a beloved fan favorite on Book Talk, and it is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. And I actually did like this book. I gave this book, I think I gave it 4 stars. So this book follows Tate, who is the main female protagonist, and what was the guy's name? Miles. So this is their story. So it's one of those like close proximity, like not really enemies to lovers, kind of like strangers to lovers, I guess. So Tate moves in with her brother and Miles lives across the hall. So that is the beginning of their relationship. And they basically start this friends with benefits relationship, and it flips back and forth between present day and 6 years in the past. So the stuff that you get from Tate's perspective is present day, and then the stuff that you get from Miles's perspective is from 6 years ago. So it is dual POV, but not in the same time period, if that makes sense. I wouldn't say that the plot in this book is like, ooh, it's so good. It's not about the story or the plot itself. It's about the characters. It's about the character development and you being able to get inside their head and understand them and empathize with them or relate to them. And I think that's why, for me anyway, that's why I really liked this story, because I felt like Tate was a very relatable character. If you've ever been attracted to a toxic, emotionally damaged, unavailable man, then you're gonna like Tate. I thought the cover was really cool, but then I read the book and the cover is almost disturbing given what the meaning of it is and the relevance of it in the story. It does have a decent plot twist. My favorite chapter is probably chapter 37. That moment was just really, it was a moment that I wasn't really prepared for, didn't really know how to take in, but still enjoyed nonetheless. And finally, last but not least, the last book for the month of August was A Quart of Thorns and Roses. So this is by Sarah J. I don't know if it's Maas or Moss, but this is the first book in the ACOTAR series. So this story basically follows, what's her name? What's the main character's name? Feyre. I keep getting her name mixed up with Freya from the originals. Feyre, she's a regular human, but she's poor. She lives with her dad and her 2 sisters. She ends up killing a wolf, and then there are creatures that come to basically take her and hold her hostage, because that's the exchange. Like, you killed this wolf that was really special to us, so now either we're going to kill you or we're going to take you and bring you back to our land. So she opts to be taken back to their land, and she, as I guess technically supposed to be like a hostage, so to speak, but she's living a life of luxury. She basically ends up falling in love with the High Lord. So she falls in love with him, and it turns out that there's like this spell or curse or something that has been placed on him, and because she loves him, she has to find a way to break the curse. This is my first experience reading fantasy. It was okay. I don't remember what I rated this. I might have rated this like a 3.7. I don't remember. The beginning is slow and kind of redundant, and the protagonist is extremely annoying. I have multiple notes where I'm like, why is she so annoying? She's incredibly annoying and stubborn and just dumb and just does a bunch of unnecessary stuff all the time. But if you can get past that, then I guess the rest of the story is okay. The first book of a series, especially a fantasy series, usually spends a lot of time doing a lot of world building, which this book kind of did, but then it also did a lot of exposition where there's like a whole chapter's worth of dialogue where this character is just telling you a bunch of stuff. The plot twist was like great, but I don't like the way it was like presented to us as the reader. It was just kind of like word vomit, like here's all the answers to all the questions that you've ever wanted to know. Pace really starts to get going once she is now trying to save Tamlin. Will I be reading the second book? Yes, because I heard that the second book is better than the first book. And those are all the books that I read for the month of September. I actually managed to add one more book to the list. So in July I read 5, and now in August I've read 6. Am I going to read 7 in September? Probably not. But I do want to point out the fact that in my last video, when I did my TBR, there were 2 books that were on my TBR that are clearly not in this video, and that is They Both Die at the End and Such a Fun Age. They both are on my TBR to be read at some point. It just wasn't going to be August. I changed my mind about that. So if you were looking forward to that, then definitely subscribe, stay tuned, because I will get around to reading it. But yeah, you guys have reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Comment down below if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts are or what you rated them. Also, if you have any book recommendations, leave those down below as well. All of my reading and social media links will be down below in the description. Share, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. This book was enlightening, disturbing sometimes, concerning, thought-provoking.